recording. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Energies. My name is Dee. Thanks for joining me. I'm so grateful that you're here. This is the weekend report for the weekend of April 25th and 26th, 2020. I have to tell you that, wow, the Gregorian calendar is just out the window for me. I'm sure it's like that for a lot of people now, but it's been like that for me for months and months, just because my lifestyle was already completely aligned to this quarantine shutdown lifestyle. So not much has changed for me. And in fact, it's gotten even less connected to a Gregorian calendar or a weekday or any of that kind of stuff. I really am just tracking the moon at this point, and this and the other planets, and that's about as far as I get with a calendar. So forgive me if it seems like I don't know what day it is, because I don't. It's a very thin it's a very thin tether at this point, because what's important to me is tracking the cycles. So I'm going to get right into it. This is just going to be for the weekend. There we have our moon now in Gemini. This was from last night. Let's see. The moon went right into Gemini right after midnight. You can see here actually 12:18 a.m. Pacific Standard Time on Friday night into Saturday morning. It is at 0 degrees, 0 minutes. So we're right exact on the moon in Gemini. And we have here just a few moments away from Mercury in late Aries square to Pluto. So some of the big things happening this weekend, actually, one of the major big things, there's a couple. Today, by the end of the day, Pluto will station retrograde and will be retrograde until the end of October. I feel like that I already looked this up and even wrote it down somewhere, maybe in one of the dailies. So Jupiter's going to go retrograde, going to go back over the place where Pluto was going retrograde. So yes, it will go back over the place where it conjuncted with Jupiter not that long ago. It will also, Pluto's also going to go back and hit the spot where it was conjunct Saturn in early January. And we know now that the big conjunction that was the Pluto-Saturn conjunction that we've been talking about forever, it seems like, was really the harbinger of where we're at right now. So Pluto's going to go back over all of this stuff and then come back, and it's not going to come back to this point where it's at now until late January. And by that time, Saturn and Jupiter specifically will already be direct in Aquarius, and so we will be full on. So let's talk about the degree that these squares are at, and what this degree that Pluto's at is so important, and what's happening. And I've been talking about this for so long in terms of the degree, because Pluto moves very slow, right? It is a slow moving planet. The orbit is like over 200 some years around the sun. And so every day it's a very incremental move. And so the Sabian symbol and the energy attached to that archetype is very strong with Pluto. It has a lot of time to fully manifest itself. And we're talking about transpersonal energy here. We're talking about energy that impacts the entire planet, rather than specifically our personal lives, which is, you know, the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, and to a certain extent Mars. These are more the personal planets. They move faster around the sun. The impact is more on a personal level, but we're talking with Pluto, this is everybody. It's impacting everybody. And the degree that Pluto has been at, I've talked about this so many times, and I've kind of got this new conception of it now that's come to me, is it's in Capricorn. So let's talk first, because this is the square. So between Mercury and Pluto in late Aries, late Capricorn. So one thing I want to mention is, if you're not sleeping very well, or if it's fitful or whatever, I mean, that's kind of been the case for the last week, but specifically, there is a lot of very potent, very electric mental energy right now as Mercury is getting into late Aries. The potency and the creative potential when we get to Aries is getting so intense. At late Aries, I mean, you're really getting to the point where the seed itself is coming to maximum potency and is ready to be planted into the soil, right? So all of the potential, all of the energy is building and building. And when we're talking about Mercury, we're talking about the mind, we're talking about the messages. And so there's just so much potential. There's so much potential energy, and it's really coming through our minds right now. And so I know I'm no exception. And I'm sure that many of us, even when we take a huge step back of consuming content or anything like that, we're still getting we're still experiencing the energetic resonance of where these planets are in relation to the symbolic archetype that they are placed in when they are in a specific zodiac sign. Or if you're talking about Vedic or sidereal astrology, it's more focused on the constellations themselves and less about, tropical astrology is dividing the wheel of the zodiac into equal segments, and that's how you get the placement of planets within certain signs. It's very equal, 360 degrees. So regardless of what type of astrology you're using, the idea is that these planets have a specific archetype attached to them, and then they are in a sign or in a constellation that has a different energy or archetype associated with them, and then that is a story that's playing out. That's a relationship, and it has a specific function for all of us. So square, obviously, ding, getting broadsided. These are trajectories that are in not opposite directions, just conflicting directions. So let's take Pluto and Mercury out of the equation for just 1 second and talk about Aries and Capricorn. I talked already a little bit about this. Aries is all about potential, creative potential, cardinal fire, action, right? Capricorn, and that's right here, beginning, the first house is Aries. By the time we get to Capricorn, this is the 10th house. This is about structure, material, earth-like structure. Again, it's cardinal earth. That means something's actually happening. There is action associated with it. This is the building of structures that are very strong, that are very they're so strong that we don't think that there's anything past them, they're so strong that they make up our institutions, our governments, our cultures. Capricorn is the engine of nature herself in some ways, and those are natural laws that we cannot move past. This is where Saturn is at home. There is the law of karma. There is the law of the universe, natural law, cause and effect, physics. These are all aspects of Newtonian physics specifically. This is quantum physics is a whole, we move past Capricorn with quantum physics. That is definitely Aquarian and in Pisces to a certain extent. So when we're talking about Aries and Capricorn being square, Aries is all about the potential of what you can create. It is movement forward. It is potential energy. It is creative power. By the time you get to Capricorn, it is already built. The energy is already built, and it's in the process of building you have a trajectory. It is a very singular focus. You are having a path up the mountain, and there's no potential energy at that point. It is being utilized to build something. So there's the square right there, because if you're continuing to think about potency and potential and desire and all of these things that are associated with Aries, it is conflicting with the Capricorn energy, which is we are building something that is strong, that will last, and there's no potential energy to consider anymore. This is the essence of the natural world being built into something substantial. So that itself is the square. Now you put these two elements here on top of it, and you look at the degrees, and then you start to get a much, the picture becomes more nuanced. There's more detail here. There's more to the story. So Mercury, last degrees, and they actually, if you go forward just a couple of minutes, let's see here if I can do this. Like 12:30, they are going to be square Yeah, like right at 25 degrees. So for the sake of the Sabian symbol, 25 degrees of Aries is a person, um, the possibility for a person to experience at two levels of being, right? We're talking about the duality that is inherent within the creative potential. It hasn't been expressed yet. That doesn't happen till Gemini, which is where we're at with the moon. So the moon is definitely giving us a lot of options to practice emotionally this Gemini energy. And the moon is going to conjunct Venus and asteroid Vesta tomorrow. And we'll talk about that in a second. So the ability to experience things in two different levels of being, the revelation of new potentials. Okay, this is certainly not something that's lost on many people right now in terms of where our minds are. So many options, so many potentials, and it's two levels of being, right? This two world thing is so in our face now, and the potential of it is really just right in the top of our minds here. Squaring Pluto. Now this degree, and it's going retrograde today. So it's come to this degree of Capricorn, which is a shop full of these beautiful oriental rugs, right? And we talked about rugs and how these beautiful rugs represent like the refinement and the artistic nature of the culture, like what the culture has built. We can stand on the rugs. We can pray on the rugs. They represent everything that the culture is built to allow it to be refined. Now, Pluto tears everything down and is the Lord of Death. It is the excavator in a lot of ways of digging out all of the aspects that are in the foundation of whatever we're talking about and bringing it to light, right? Pluto rules Scorpio, and that's a big component of Scorpio in the 8th house, is this investigation, getting to the deeper meaning of things. And Pluto does it whether you like it or not, and it's not always about the deeper meaning, but that's a part of the process of understanding and facing death. That's really what Pluto always does, is like this, facing the ultimate duality of life and death, because this is where our real power comes from, is being able to recognize this dynamic. And also Pluto is really good at getting to the bottom of things, the things that are buried, the things that are hidden, the things that are at the foundation, below the foundation, that we don't want to look at, that may have much more to do with what's going on than we anticipate, and so, or even can imagine. And that's why Pluto is so important. So what's Pluto been doing? Well, in some ways, been pulling this rug out from under us for a while now, weeks and weeks. But really what it seems to be doing is doing that. It's not in one fell swoop, right? It's not just like, here, let me pull the rug out from under you. It's more like one thread at a time. It's just been pulling this thread slowly, slowly, and just unraveling this rug. And as it's come to this degree exact, it is going to go retrograde. And so it's not quite done yet. The rug has not been completely dismantled or pulled out from under us quite yet. And in fact, that's not really going to happen until Pluto moves back over this point and then passes it in January. So there's a lot going on, and there's a lot to be experienced as we move forward. And so just keep that in mind, that there are, especially Saturn and Jupiter, they're going to go retrograde too this month. And so all of that stuff is stuff we're going to go back over for months, right? This is not going to be over anytime soon in terms of the impact going forward of everybody's life. So we do have all this potential of being in a new place, of being able to conceptualize new things, all this creative energy, and it's really sitting on top of our minds. But Pluto is just like, nope, I'm going to just be pulling this thread, constantly pulling this thread out from under all of us. And, in some ways it feels like that might work together, because, you're able to conceptualize these new potentials while this rug is being pulled away. But we can't really put anything new into place until that's totally done. And I think this is where the square is for us. Now, we do have the moon in Gemini as well. So it's going to be trine Saturn. Let's see when that happens. I think it already did. There we go. oh, not that far. This was overnight. Yeah, trine Saturn in Aquarius, and it's been sitting in Aquarius now for at this 2-degree mark. The electrical storm, Saturn is really giving us, it's like preparing us basically for being able to handle the crises that is the initiation into the age of Aquarius. Saturn has been like just, constantly showing us the reality of it, right? And so the moon at 2 degrees Gemini is an interesting, it's like when you get to the 1st degree, you see all the possibilities mentally, like all of the potential, not to create, but like of what you can conceive of. Gemini, there's a lot of curiosity. There's no boundaries. It's mutable air. I mean, your ideas can go anywhere and it's endless, right? For every idea you have, there is always an antithesis. This is the, oh gosh, Hegelian dialectic. There we go. Which, which was used as like the baseline for Marxism, actually. So that's a totally different conversation. But what I'm trying to say is that no matter what, there will always be a thesis and an antithesis. And that is the nature of Gemini, that it goes on forever. The mind will go on forever with alternatives and potential ideas, right? So that's the 1st degree. The 2nd degree is the opposition of that, is just like Santa filling the stockings, right? It's everything that you actually want from this mental playground in some ways. Let's read, I want to read the Sabian symbol because I want to, let's find it. There it is. Santa Claus furtively filling stockings hanging in front of the fireplace. A rewarded faith in spiritual blessings, right? It's if you let your mind just go endlessly, there is no faith there, right? It's just this constant flow of ideas, which in and of itself gives us a lot of power, and what we can conceive of can just go on forever. But at the same time, we do need the balance there, which is having some sort of faith, whatever that means to you, that there will be a reward of some sort at the end of this Gemini energy. So with the moon there trining Saturn, it's been difficult. It has not been easy. Like, Saturn is never an easy energy to deal with. It's just like dad that's just like putting the boundaries down, and we're like teenagers that are just like, no, I don't want to, you don't know what you're talking about. I know everything. And then you get older and you're like, oh yeah, they were like preparing me for life. And in this instance, it's really preparing us for the Aquarian age. That's what Saturn's been doing. And so the moon in Gemini trining this space today is really like, if we can get our minds at least momentarily in a place internally, right? We're talking about the moon, so we're talking about us, our internal landscape. If we can get to this place where we can accept that there are some sort of reward, whatever that means to you, for having some sort of faith, it makes it a lot easier. So the moon in Gemini this weekend is a really good opportunity for us. So those are the big ones for today. And then Pluto goes retrograde by the end of the day. And we'll be, like I said, we'll be retrograde until about October. So, that the fall is going to be very, very interesting, as I'm sure you can imagine. So let's move on to tomorrow. So this is Saturday. So the moon is in Gemini all day. We have that trine to Saturn. The Pluto's going to station retrograde by the end of the day. We have this square between Mercury. And so tomorrow, oops, tomorrow, yeah, the 27th, right? No, 26th, sorry. It won't let me do like just a day. There we go. So what do we have tomorrow? We have the moon now. It's going to conjunct Vesta. It's going to conjunct Venus in Gemini, right? This is, Venus is really showing us where it's comfortable, what feels good about being in this Gemini space, about being able to have one foot in one zone and one foot in the other simultaneously. Gemini is the twins. It's the idea that, you know, the two sides to the same coin, but it's from a mental perspective. And again, it's going back to the Hegelian dialectic, which is that for every thought or thesis, there will always be an antithesis, always. And this is how, when you're able to synthesize these two things, this is where you get to Sagittarius and understanding. But for now, Venus and Vesta, the goddess of service, right, the keeper of the hearth flame, they are both in this realm showing us where our service is. And Venus specifically, she's really good at showing us what she likes and what she doesn't like. And when she's in Gemini, she's curious. She doesn't commit to anything mentally necessarily. She likes to be able to play both sides mentally, consider things on both sides, and be curious. Sometimes flighty, especially with Venus, because she's all about reception. So she's taking in so many ideas and not really making a decision about anything. And I think that she, especially when it comes to our resources and our relationships and the world around us, remember Venus rules Taurus. This is where Sun and Uranus are. And in fact, they are going to be conjunct on Sunday at the same time. So this is going to be, I mean, talk about not being able to sleep. Sun and Uranus coming together is so disruptive, and now it's just going to shine a light on this dynamic. And what is this dynamic? This is the woman of Samaria, the Good Samaritan at the well. And I talked a lot about this in one of my Starseed viral journey episodes, so I don't want to go back over it, but this is now what this disruption has been, kind of putting us in a position where if we're willing to accept the chaos, if we're willing to accept what appears to be opposite of us and show love, that we are able to move into a new place. And so Uranus is not an easy ride. It never is. It's a quick awakening. It is a jolt. But when the sun comes and it's going to shine, it's going to illuminate, it is going to show the full expression of this dynamic with Uranus. And I think it's going to be, and we're talking about Taurus, so it's going to be about the world around us. So I would not be surprised by tomorrow that there is a major illumination of something, even within ourselves, about how we can best engage this energy, because this is where it's at. We have to be able to, on some level, we have to be able to do this. We have to be able to accept and see through our division in order to and accept it with love, like with gratitude, like, and see the truth of the situation as opposed to the filter of what our culture has been saying over and over. Remember, the Sumerians and the Jewish people did not like each other. And so when Jesus showed up at the well, at the Sumerian well, wanting water, the Good Samaritan, the woman at the well, I mean, if it were anybody else, they would have been like, get out of here, you know, you're not drinking from the well. But because she was already an outcast from her society, she saw Jesus and his disciples as people. And as a result, he revealed himself as God to her. I mean, he wouldn't do that to anybody else. It was all allegory and you had to figure it out. But he just straight up told her because she was able to see him. So this is, you know, Uranus has been very disruptively showing this, and now the sun is going to conjunct it. It's going to be really obvious. Now that depends on what part of your chart this is aspecting, and that's why you need a, you know, personal reading is really important, because then you can figure out what area of your life to focus on when it comes to these major transits. But for the world, it is going to be a big enlightenment. We might not see it tomorrow. We might see it tomorrow. It's happening overnight. So again, sleep, dreams, it might be very disruptive. All I did was dream about this transit last night. I kept waking up going, Sun, Uranus. And that happens to me a lot, actually. Now I just get weird downloads in my dreams. They're not dreams anymore. They're just like channelings while I'm sleeping. It's bizarre. And then we have the moon, like I said, coming along and conjunct with Vesta, conjunct with Venus, you know, emotionally, internally, giving us this opportunity. And this is all very goddess, divine feminine energy. We got the moon And then we got Venus, and then we got Vesta. Like, you know, we're really going to have an opportunity to connect with this energy. And so where is the conjunction with the moon and Venus? I will show you 18 degrees Gemini, but that's not where they're going to conjunct. Let's see here. I think they're going to be conjunct at, let's see. Yeah, looks like 17 to 18 degrees. Okay, so what's 18 degrees? Oh yeah, okay, so just forgive the symbolism. Remember that the person, the medium who was intuiting the symbols, this was like in the early 20th century. So it says 2 Chinese men converse in their native language in an American city. So look at it from a symbolic perspective here. The need for the mind to retain its independence from its physical environment in order to concentrate on its special problems. Individuals who have entered into a new realm of activity usually find themselves alienated from their social environment, to live in the world but not be of the world. This is when this happens, this Sun conjunct Uranus tomorrow, we are going to need this energy big time. And what a gift. What a gift that we are in a position to harness that and be able to live in the world but not of it. Because if we are of it, we're going to get drawn into the chaos. That is for sure. And we can't afford that. We can't afford that on this path right now. So take it as a gift tomorrow that the moon and Venus and Vesta are really showing us how to retain its independence from the, you know, keep your mind focused on the task at hand. And for anybody that's watching this channel, it has, you know, it's the awakening, it's the ascension of humanity, the spiritual awakening of humanity, not getting mired in all of the physical material aspects, even though they're very substantial. We're talking about Taurus, you know, there's going to be a big shift. It's not even going to be a shift, it's going to be an illumination with the Sun Uranus. So the moon and Venus and Vesta, oh, so good. I'm so glad that that's happening. And then the moon is also going to trine Mars in Aquarius, who is just charging along through Aquarius. And this degree in particular is subduing a forest fire by any means necessary. The skill and courage necessary to bring under control the destructive potential of carelessness of karmic visitations. And so it's sometimes a forest fire is caused by natural, you know, causes, lightning, but sometimes it's not. Regardless of what it is, this degree here is, and Mars, I mean, he's as a firefighter. I mean, who else would you want to be able to fight a fire other than the god of war? I mean, he rules Aries, so he is very familiar with fire and understands it very well. And so the moon is also going to be trining that particular point as well. And, you know, remembering, again, bringing back into remembering the deeper knowledge, remembering that there is always a duality to consciousness that we have to actually engage with in order to transcend it, and really supporting and supportive of Mars right now in this position. Like, really, he is our champion of the Aquarian age right now. Very much so. And I'm really glad he's here right now. And the moon is going to, you know, this trine with the moon is really going to help to kind of bring it back into like the seed knowledge of all humanity, and just remember that the fire that Mars is trying to put out is something that has been around for a long time, and it's come back karmically. I mean, this is Atlantis coming back around, right? Now we get to do it differently. And, you know, the moon is reminding us of that. This is not the first time. It's not the first time. And then the moon will come around and then square Neptune in Pisces. This is where, again, the moon, once you start getting into the last 10 degrees of Gemini, the conflict between the dualistic aspects, or even if they are the same thing with a different face, it starts to become, you start to get, because you're moving closer to Cancer, and Cancer is about protection, it's about boundaries, it is about personal power, it is about containing your emotional vulnerability. So the more you get closer to Cancer in Gemini, you start to feel the actual resistance between what appear to be opposing viewpoints. And so now that we're getting into late Pisces, which is really just like you're getting to the point where you're mastering the cycle, it's ending, right? The cycle is ending. And this degree is about hope and a new future that you can only feel. It's intuitive at this point. You've showed up at the table, right? That's come and gone. That degree showed up at the table. The table's been set. We showed up for the meal, and now we are in a position where we're being asked to have hope, a hope of a good future, and it's all based on faith. With Pisces, there's no definitive anything. We just have to have faith that the cycle is ending and that it will begin again, because that is the way of the natural cycle. It's going to be tumultuous, I think, by the end of tomorrow. I mean, not to mention the fact that the sun square, the sun meeting Uranus in and of itself is tumultuous, but the moon, once it starts getting into late Gemini, is going to kind of start pulling us in one direction or the other, and we're going to start feeling the resistance energetically within us about which side we're on, because you have to end up choosing a side when you get to the nadir, and that's 0 degrees Cancer. So by the end of tomorrow, we're going to really start feeling this, like, what side are we on type of thing. We're going to feel that resistance, and it's going to be square this point in Neptune, where we're being asked to have hope in a very, without any real evidence other than we're trusting and surrendering to this process. So when tomorrow comes and you are feeling this resistance and it is tumultuous and it feels chaotic, remember that to lean into this square here, that it is tumultuous, and there's a revolutionary impact when these mental concepts, which is Gemini, are imposed, not even imposed, they are just start to superimpose themselves on the collective desires of the people. That is going to lead us somewhere, and so lead us to picking a side. And look, I mean, 0 degrees Cancer is the raising of a new flag and the pulling down of an old one. It is a change of allegiance. It is a point of no return. This is where we are collectively headed. This is the true node. So it's going to be tumultuous, but remember, we still have to have hope, and we have to surrender to this process. And I know that's really hard, and we're really going to be challenged by the end of tomorrow to do that. But I do trust that we can do this. And yeah, we can do this. So anyway, that's the weekend report. I just wanted to come on and get it up here so people have something to reflect on over the weekend. And I'll be back on Monday with the daily reading and some more astrology. I'm sure we're going to have a first quarter square coming soon, and that's going to be a crisis in action. Oh, doesn't that seem like it really falls into where this is all leading? So, all right, guys, take care of yourselves. Have a great weekend. Reach out if you need anything. Everything you need will be in the description box below. I'm doing readings by donation right now, so reach out and send me a message, and I will get you on my docket. Take care, everybody. I'll talk to you sooner than later. Bye.